All right. Hello, everyone. This is Adam and Kyle. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah.
Hopefully that came through okay.
It did. It did.
Good.
And sorry that we had to we're a little late doing it this week. But we're here today, and hopefully we'll have a good stream. So
Yeah.
I thought that it would be fun, and we've been saying we were going to do this for a while, but we finally got enough questions, and it was the right opportunity. So we're going to answer some viewer questions. So sort of an AUA, right? Ask us anything type
Yeah.
situation. Go through it, or just what you had written here.
I'd say let's just go through what we have in the doc
All right,
and
let's do it.
yeah, go from there.
Okay, so I'm actually going to copy it. I'm going to make
Perfect.
a banner.
Oh, nice. And then you're gonna share it out so that
Yeah.
people can actually see what the questions are, rather
Yeah.
than
So
trying to
this,
remember what we said five
right.
minutes
So
into answering the question.
that's right. So here's the first question. How did you and your partners meet? Do you want to go first, Kyle?
I want you to go first.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since I've been
So,
curious about that myself because I know basic details, but I don't know the full story.
well, I mean, it's not anything too exciting, honestly. We met online.
Damn, okay.
We met on the app Coffee Meets Bagel,
Okay.
and
What year did you guys meet?
we met in like I don't know, like 2000, like 17, 18.
Okay.
No, way before that. What am I talking about? I don't actually remember.
Well, it sounds like it was
Way
after
before that.
2012
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that was the
It,
last time that I was on dating apps and
it
Coffee Meets
it was
Bagel
probably
wasn't
around
available
then.
at the
Oh, this
time.
is it's gonna sound really bad. That people are gonna be like, he doesn't know when he met his wife. I don't remember the exact date.
It's so good that time just flew by. You weren't keeping track. That's how
She's
you
gonna be
know it's
so
good.
angry when she actually doesn't get upset about that stuff. But no, it was definitely well before 2015. It's crazy. So yeah, probably around like I don't know. Yeah, maybe 2015, 2014 ish.
Mhm.
I'll look it up later. I write this
We'll
stuff down because
confirm that.
I do not remember this. It's really bad. But we met online and we had dinner. We went to Korean barbecue, I believe.
Nice.
And yeah, we hit it off. We went to karaoke and then we went on a few more dates. And then she went on vacation. And then she came back and we've been dating and we've been married and that was it.
Very nice.
Yeah, so not too exciting. I mean, just a dating app, but dating apps can work. You just had a I think you just have to have the right criteria and the right mindset. And if you're if you're like and Coffee Meets Bagel is much more of a relationship type of app more than I think like Tinder was. At least Tinder back when I was using it, right? Now it
Definitely.
seems like people use Tinder as like a real dating app, not just a hookup app. But
Yeah, I'm not sure because at this point Tinder's been around for like 10 plus years,
yeah,
so
like
I'm
a
not
long
sure
time.
how things have changed. So, damn.
Yeah, man. How about you?
So I'll be honest, and this might just be end up being a short question because I met my wife the exact same way. I met on a dating site. It was not Coffee Meets Bagel. It was OK Cupid, probably the
Okay.
biggest one at the time, and it
Okay,
was
Cupid. Wow.
yeah,
Oldie but goodie right there.
absolutely. And it was 2012, and I had been on there just kind of not taking it very seriously for a couple
Yes.
years.
First date of yes, most Korean date ever.
And I will say that, like, just regardless of my own wife and relationships, that when it came to hitting it off with people and having a really good first impression on people,
Hmm.
karaoke always fucking worked for me. That is like one of the best fucking places to see more charismatic and interesting than you actually are without putting in much effort. As long as you have the bravery to sing in front of other people. That could be like someone's
That's so
worst fucking
funny.
nightmare, but if you like that shit, it's game over. Like, you look so good.
No, yeah, no, and I also learned that my wife was not like, um, she wasn't shy about it, and she liked doing it, and she was up for it, and she could sing too, so
Yeah,
it was great.
good. Glad you guys had a good time.
Oh yeah.
But
So you met on.
oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask you this. Are you gifted with a decent singing voice, though?
I am,
Okay,
but you don't even have to sing well.
it's true.
So
It's true.
you
You
know,
really just have to commit to being loud and being
yes,
somewhat in tune, and that's about it.
somewhat, and
Yeah.
and know the lyrics a bit, or at least like make a performance of it. Right? Have
No,
fun.
exactly.
It's
Exactly. You got to make it entertaining for other
yeah.
people. So I'm gonna just change the topic again really quick and just drop something that is something very important for people, especially Asian people, to know, which is like the unspoken rules of karaoke. I mean, there's a lot of them. Like, don't fucking enter a song that no one knows. And if you're going to do a song that no one knows, it better be entertaining. Because if you're the kind of person that is like
Yeah.
looking at the book and then you're laughing at, oh, I'm gonna put in Funky Town. That's a funny song. And then you're just like,
Yeah, if you
and
don't
you
know,
shyly sing
yeah,
it. That
yeah,
sucks.
you
That
don't
is
do that.
uncomfortable and bad for everyone. Don't fucking do that shit.
Right.
And don't put in like 4 songs in a row by yourself unless it's entertaining, because that is so fucking annoying.
Unless you can really sing,
Yeah.
or like you're super entertaining, or it's just like empty, right? If
That's
it's like
the whole thing.
yeah,
You
because
need
like,
to have a certain self-awareness of how entertaining you are. And if you're entertaining, go for it. Everyone's going to have a great time because they're probably drinking anyway. But if you're not entertaining, that is the most miserable, like 16 minutes of everyone's life.
yes,
You have to
exactly.
commit fully.
And there most karaoke joints in I think the world, but in New York City are like the room karaoke, right? So you're just
Yep.
with your friends, or maybe yourself in there, but it's not like out in the open, right, at the bar. But there are some places like that, right? And I like those places because I'm sort of like a, I don't know, show off, or I just like the idea that like just strangers are entertaining strangers and having fun together, right? Because if
Oh,
you're going out and
absolutely.
you're drinking, you're at a bar, like, so so that type of thing, and especially in that situation, you do not just like put like 1,000 songs in, right? Because
Yeah.
it's one thing if it's like a small group of friends and no one's choosing anything, so you've got to put songs in, right, to fill up the time, right, that you're paying for.
Yep.
But you don't just put like 4 songs in if it's like a open bar karaoke, like, and you better be good if you do.
Yeah,
Do
4
that.
songs for just yourself that no one else knows.
Yeah.
And you're not going to commit fully to being either entertaining or singing really well. You just fucked up everyone's entire night. It's terrible.
So it's also, I don't know. I just think it's fun. Like I always wanted to go because I like to do it, and then I hope like whoever I was on a date with would come go along with me. But if they didn't, I would just go anyway. So,
I mean, me too.
yeah,
I love doing it. And I guess one last thing I'll say is, like, if you're in an Asian style room karaoke and you're not really familiar with it, don't fucking just randomly push buttons on the remote. You could fuck up the entire queue. You can totally do that. Do not hit the red button when someone is mid-song. The only button that people should know about is knowing how to skip like instrumental parts. But if you're not exactly sure, don't fucking touch any of those buttons because you could ruin the whole thing.
Dude, I didn't know about that button that would skip like the instrumental parts.
Yeah,
until
like
I met
a
my
guitar
wife.
solo in there or something like that.
Until I met my wife, and she did it one of the times, and I was like, "What is this? What?" And I kind of don't like it, but at the same time, I can see like there's some songs that have a really long, musical interludes, so you've got to do it, and especially it saves time, right? Like
it does. You can fit
you
more songs in that way.
Yeah, you'll get another song or two in by doing that. So totally.
So we're experienced with this. We both know.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, we may have learned different things at different times, but the knowledge is the same right now.
absolutely.
So,
So you met your wife on OkCupid,
yes.
and I will not ask when,
I
but
already said 2012, so that
oh,
was
that's
10
right,
years
that's
ago.
right.
Yeah, 11
Uh,
years ago. Damn.
yeah. Uh, and what was your first date? Was it karaoke as well?
It was actually pretty uneventful in the sense that like I didn't plan anything to try and leave a super good first impression of being an exciting person. I just wanted to have conversation and see what would happen. And it was frozen yogurt that turned into like a 3 hour conversation. It's rare to have a 3 hour conversation that like
Wow.
lasts without really giving you the opportunity to say, hey, do you want to move somewhere else?
So you
Um,
you you met up for frozen yogurt and just stayed there for 3 hours.
yep. And
Damn,
then we ended up going to dinner after that at Buffalo Wild Wings, but it was
fancy.
only about 45 minutes to really eat and talk more because I didn't know how long it was going to last, but I did promise my roommate at the time that I would help clean the apartment. So I had to cut the night early saying, "Hey, I promised my roommate I was going to clean the apartment, and I'm not the type to break promises. I'm so
Wow.
sorry. We'll have to meet again soon." And we did.
And do you think that the fact that you did that was like a positive? Like, has she mentioned that in the you know in the 11 years of your relationship,
Yeah.
that like that sort of you keeping your word, or like that was so important to
Uh
you?
I guess not even like keeping my word as much as it just like it didn't seem eager to it didn't seem too eager to
Mm.
have to cut it short and be the one to say, "Hey, I gotta cut this shit short." And but in a way that didn't sound like, "Oh, this sucked. I gotta go. Bye."
Right. Well, it also was like 3.5 hours later, so
Yeah, no, exactly.
you weren't cutting it short. I mean, it was already a pretty long first date, right? And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and he, that was not. That's probably not an excuse that most people will use to get out of like the date if it is going bad, right?
Oh shoot, my mom is sick. I gotta visit her at the
Right, right,
hospital.
right. I'm like, oh, something just happened to my friend. More, no, it's just I
I gotta roast in the oven.
yeah, I've yeah. So that's cool, man.
But
And
I,
then
I I will say this for the person that asked. Shout out to George. I mean, I think my answer is pretty standard and not super insightful so far.
yeah,
So I guess the only thing to make it more insightful that I'll say is I think between ages 11 and 14 in middle school, I was on a lot of message boards, a lot of forums, on a lot of AOL Instant Messenger, and that was the few years that I took to get really good at interacting with people on the internet. Meaning, like,
okay.
I was able to establish rapport and give off a good first impression and read someone else's personality really well based on the types of questions I was asking and the communications that I was having online. And
Okay.
based on that impression that I had built up during like the message exchanging phase, but before meeting in person, was when I was really able to determine, hey, based on this person's interest, the way that they're sort of portraying themselves through these messages, I think this could work out. Someone that is
That's
not
interesting.
like super high maintenance, not someone that is pretentious, someone that's putting on airs to seem cool or seem more interesting or more compelling than they actually are. Just someone that is a regular person that's trying to be genuine, that's just trying to find a good relationship to spend time with someone. So, based on that read, that's why the first date was successful. I would visit her like once a week over like a 1 hour commute or so. And then within about 2 months, we were basically living together. So, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, my m my wife and I, we sort of moved pretty quickly in that. I don't know if we didn't, like, move in together or have that situation
mhm.
in, like, 2 months, but we sort of, like we moved in together and then bought a place before we even got married.
Wow. Okay.
But, like, we knew we were gonna get married, but, like,
Sure.
we didn't want to be beholden to, or, we were not so like, okay, we've got to be married first before we make this like commitment by buying like property together, right? Like we're gonna do that and then we'll be like married or have like our ceremony, right? So
Mhm.
like it, yeah, but we moved fairly quickly, I think, for most people in most people's estimation. But like we also weren't like 22 or 20, or 18. You know, we weren't like young,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, and
it
I
wasn't
guess
necessarily.
I would say my relationship went similarly too in terms of the pace. I mean, we didn't end up getting married until 5 years after we
Okay,
had
wow,
met,
yeah,
but I think we were both ready by about 1 year, and I think it's one of those things where the often repeated adage is, "When you know," and in
yeah.
my case, that was absolutely true because, before that point, I probably had about 4, 5, maybe 6 dating relationships in my life that lasted more than a month, and, I mean, this was the first one that lasted more than a year. I mean, up to that point, all my relationships were less than a year. And,
Oh wow, okay.
up to that point, without really knowing, I thought, "Hey, is there something wrong with me?" And it was no. It was
No,
something
no.
wrong with the relationships with the people I was choosing. And I think it was in part because, like, I was trying to, I guess, be myself while dating, like, more conventional or more normal people. And I
Hmm.
mean, like, meaning that, like, their sensibilities matched up more with, like, just random normies rather than accepting within myself earnestly that I was kind of strange, and it's probably better if I
Right.
go with
Okay.
someone that's a little bit more unusual, regardless
Okay.
of
Yeah.
how they look.
Yeah.
So I took honesty within myself to really get to that point. But once I knew, I knew. So
Yeah.
I think once you know, you know. I can't really think of any examples of people I know in my own life where that was not the case.
Yeah. I think it becomes pretty clear, um, fairly quickly, and yeah, yeah. I think in most situations where you've got to really deliberate with yourself, or it seems like a very tough decision to make, beyond just sort of, I guess, maybe um, other more mundane concerns about like, I don't know, logistics of life.
Yeah,
Um, but like from a like, do what could I see myself making this commitment to this person, and like, if things got hard, would I stay around or like work through it or whatever? Like, I think yeah, I think most of the times, right? And it's pretty quick, at least for me, and it seems for you, and I think for a lot of men, to be honest. But yeah,
but
cool.
yeah, I would say to George, who asked this question, uh, he said that he's a homebody and he's gotten rid
Mm,
of the dating apps. I would say,
that's good.
I mean, I would say, hey, it's great that you've acknowledged that you're a homebody. I'm not sure how easy it will be to find someone if you're not willing to put yourself out there on those dating apps, which can often
Yeah,
be a terrible experience. But you got to wade through the shit to find the gold. So
yeah.
that's my realistic take. That is me being the bearer of bad news. So
So yeah, and this is what I'll say for most people, just like as a general rule of like or advice with dating
yeah,
is figure out what you absolutely cannot live with, like your absolute red flag, like bottom line things,
yeah,
right? Figure those out first and stick with them really strictly, right? So like
yep,
even if like someone you meet on an app or in person or whatever has tons of like really great features, and let's be yeah, or like she's really hot or something. I'm talking mainly to heterosexual men,
of course.
so but like she violates these like or doesn't have these characteristics that you absolutely must have or you can't have, right? um you it might be very tempting to keep going, right? Or to like stay in that relationship if you're exclusive.
Mhm.
But and it's much easier to sort of break up earlier rather than later as time
Absolutely.
goes on. and things get more sort of just, connected. So I would say be strict with yourself on that. And then a lot of other stuff are like nice to haves or that you would prefer, but like are not your bottom lines. Then you can sort of negotiate within that. But don't break your own rules because you're lonely or you think that, oh, I'm getting to an age where I need to be in a relationship or need to get married. I fucked myself. I made a mistake in my first marriage doing that, and
Hmm.
it was really bad, right? I mean, and I was lucky that we didn't have kids and everything, so the divorce was not very hurtful for either of us, right? It didn't hurt me very much financially. It didn't hurt her, and we could just sort of split we didn't own any property together, anything. Our finances weren't entangled at all. So I got lucky in that respect, but it was like 2 years of my life that I won't get back. Right.
Yeah.
So be very strict with yourself from that. And that means you're going to go through a lot, you're going to
Gonna go
be
through a lot of
rejected.
people.
You're going to reject people and you're going to get rejected, if you want to use that terminology.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to me like that. It's more important almost to figure out what you absolutely cannot live with, more than figuring out like these are my wants, right? So that's what I would, right?
I absolutely agree with that. And here's an example of something that's not like a red flag, but something that was an absolutely not for me.
Yeah.
It's not like narcissism or like compulsive lying. Those are obvious. But for me, it was I didn't want to be with someone that always wanted me to go out to like clubs, social functions, various things. I guess when I was dating at the time, I was like, okay, well, I'm used to people wanting to be really social, going out to events, things like that. So I'm willing to do that. But once I met my now wife and she was more of a homebody, I was like, well, damn, I never liked that shit all along. I hate
Yeah.
that shit. So that was something that was a really lucky find for me, was someone that was like uh socially adept and someone that was good looking that didn't want to fucking go out every night.
There you
That was
go.
perfect for me.
That's perfect, right?
So
Absolutely.
that's an example of something that is a neutral quality that you can label for yourself as something that is an absolutely do not want.
Right.
And
And by me saying that like these are do not wants, I'm not judging any of those qualities,
yeah,
right?
they're just neutral qualities.
Yeah, it's just sort of like this is what you prefer, or this is something I don't want to do, right? um, I guess for either one.
No, she's part of a female only family. So
Same with my wife. She has
yeah, so
no brothers, only sister, and she's married.
yeah, so sorry, Danielle.
Unfortunately, yeah.
The
Sorry,
search
Danielle.
continues.
Yeah. But yeah, and you can the dating apps, I think the dating app culture and the appification of dating has been a net negative, just like I think social media as a whole has been sort of a net negative for society. But if you go it sucks to have to think of it this way, though I think this is sort of more of an old school way of going about it, because I think relationships and marriage were a lot, I don't know, a lot more deliberate back in the day. But like if you use the apps um with a goal in mind and with these with the strategy of like these are my I must not have, or I really don't want or must have things, and you're going to be strict with that and you're willing to just go through tons and tons of people, and maybe going with just no luck for a while, then it can be useful, right? Especially if you're not someone who happens to be able to meet a ton of people just out in the world. But yeah, I can understand people just deleting them after a while, and it's okay to just delete them. And be like, I need a break. Like that's fine too.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I mean, if you really want to be in a relationship, it sometimes you almost have to let it go and just. It sounds cheesy, but like, just live your life and enrich your own life and do your thing, and don't obviously be a hermit, but like just do all the stuff around you. And like sometimes I've had good relationships or good friendships just out of the blue. Like you weren't
Yep.
even expecting it. You weren't looking for it. You weren't like so desperately seeking it. Because I think like when you're sort of concentrated and you're doing your thing and you know whatever interests you, right, whatever that might be, you do have a different presence and like confidence or you know just a different vibe, and people
Absolutely.
pick up on that. Like if like all you're doing is like going to work and then I don't know, just like trying to find a relationship, it can, I don't know, it's a weird energy.
Yeah, you
And
come off as eager,
yeah, and
come off
it
as maybe
doesn't,
even desperate.
right. So that can turn people off. So
Absolutely.
but yeah. So George, don't feel bad about deleting the apps. Just take a break. But
Take a break. You're a compelling young man.
yeah.
Just give romance a chance.
Cool. All right. So let's go to the next question.
Yeah.
And I've been setting these up, so I'm just trying to be a little
Perfect.
professional here.
Nice.
So the second question is, what's your favorite Asian American movie or book? I guess, or both.
So I'll start,
Sure.
and I'll start by saying I've read a few Asian American books, but to be honest, I'm not really much of a book reader. I would say I'm like a nonfiction reader. Like I like reading stuff about economic and cultural history, but I don't like fiction. I get my fiction fix from films and from video games and from
Right.
just talking to other people. So I'm good on fictional stories. But Asian American movie, I think it's a tie. I think it's a tie between one that I'm nostalgic for and sort of was very formative for me when I was younger, and one that I saw more recently, but I think is maybe a little bit more relevant to who I am as an adult. So the first one is going to be Better Luck Tomorrow, directed by
Okay.
Justin Lin,
Yeah.
2002 film. It was the first Asian American film that got mainstream marketing campaigns and that I even knew about. And it was right around the time I really started getting into being on the internet and discovering things like Angry Asian Man, the blog.
Oh yeah.
So it's really reflective of this very formative period of my life where I was like, man, all this racist white people shit is happening.
Mhm.
And this is sort of my next evolution into exploring the things that make me into the person that I want to become. And so I guess I would say I loved it a lot from the perspective of this was before any of the portrayals of Asian people in America now that we're used to deferring to, things like Crazy Rich Asians and things like that, even though I fucking don't really like that movie. But just from the perspective of having these three-dimensional characters that were just human beings who exhibited certain stereotypical traits like being academic aspirers, but you know they were getting involved with typical teenage shit, drugs, theft, getting into fights, stuff like that. So it showed this level of dimension and characterization that wasn't shown in film before. So I think that in itself was a triumph. And I really related to the character Virgil, who was like a fucking sexual deviant, horny teenage guy. And at age 13, I very much related to that. So he was one of the funnier characters in the movie. And I look at that movie fondly. But now that I'm an adult, I would say that one thing that's missing from that, and you know, I don't think it's the fault of the film because I think it was doing something revolutionary for 2002. But now that we're
Well,
in,
in some sense, it hasn't really been replicated since then,
yeah, it
right?
really hasn't been replicated since then. You're right. But I do think a film that really, really deeply resonated with me very recently was The Farewell, directed by Lulu Wang.
Yeah.
And so, what made that film really resonate with me was the idea of doing something based on the culture that you come from that is inscrutable to the culture that you or your family has immigrated to, which in this case, in this film, was keeping the secret that your grandma was going to die from her out of making her not worry.
Yeah.
And in Western culture, that would be seen as a lie. Typical people on Reddit would be like, why would you lie to your grandma like that? But, now that I'm an adult, now that I've married into an Asian family, I understand that a lot more. That there are interests and perspectives that you need to be concerned about that go beyond just yourself.
Right.
And I think the organic mix of using Mandarin and using English and sort of weaving between American cultures and Chinese culture was very nuanced and well done, to the point where it made Aquafina a likable actress for me. Where previously in her other projects, I was like, she's a fucking doofus. I do not like her. And the
Yeah.
appropriation of the AAVE shit is embarrassing too. But she didn't do
Yeah.
any of that in the farewell. She was actually very likable in the farewell. And it made me realize that her being annoying is more a choice of her acting sensibilities than it was her ability to act. So shout out to her
Yeah.
in that particular movie. And those are going to be like my two tied choices for a favorite Asian American movie. So that's what I've got. In my imagination, I imagine things that would resonate with me more. But at the end of the day, these have been the two best projects that I've liked so far. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. What about you?
Um, it's tough for me to answer the question because I have honestly not read many books that were written by Asian Americans or about Asian Americans or movies, but I have watched a few,
Mhm.
and I honestly I don't. Maybe my Asian American card can be taken because of this, but I haven't really.
Eh,
I don't remember watching Better Luck Tomorrow all the way through. I still need to watch it.
I think it'd be
Like
interesting
in a
now
way
just to
for me
sort
to
of see it from
remember it.
like a that's what 2002 was like perspective.
Yeah, like I definitely saw it, but like I didn't really make much of an impression. Or if I did see it, I only saw like parts of it over time. So
Mhm.
I know I need to watch that. But and this is I think only because I believe that this is sort of has the best portrayal of adoption
Mhm.
and in sort of any any like fictional movie or just drama is Soul Searching by directed and written by Benson Lee.
At
Um,
this point, this is the third time we've talked about it. I need to
yeah,
see it. I still have not seen it at all. So,
yeah. So I mean, it's not a perfect movie. It's not nearly the. I don't think you can sort of place it on the same level as BLT, which is just funny that people call it BLT because I just think of the sandwich. But
yeah.
um, like it's not, because I think Better Luck Tomorrow is definitely more of like an artistic piece, and maybe that's just nostalgia or like the fact it's older
I think it's kind of
talking. But
nostalgia because it's not like a
yeah,
Scorsese film. I
no, no.
mean, it's not a prestige film. So,
Yeah, but I thought Soul Searching was just it was fun to watch. I think it it juggled a large ensemble cast well with a few different storylines, but the adoption storyline was done sort of uh, was done with care. It wasn't just inserted to like make another character sort of more interesting. Like it was that character's story, right? A large part of her character was the fact she was on this trip to like, you know, find her birth parents and her birth mom, and it didn't portray it as like this happy reunion, right? Where like everything was good after that. Like it was tough, it was sad. So I like that. So that's my favorite. And then from a book for book,
mhm.
um, it's what's her? Oh my god. Uh,
Precious on, man.
Nicole. I got it. I got it. Nicole Chung's Nicole Chung's memoir, All You Can Ever Know.
Okay.
Um, so that was she's a fantastic writer. Um, her story is really unique because she's a Korean American adoptee, but she's not technically an international adoptee because her parents immigrated from Korea to America and then I think she was born here, or maybe she came with them and was adopted within the United States. But she still was,
I didn't
she
know
was,
that.
yeah, yeah. So she's not technically international because she wasn't like adopted from Korea to here. But she was raised, by like a white family and everything.
You know what? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she is the only one that's coming from that circumstance. That
It is
is a
super
very
unique.
unique set of
It's
circumstances.
very unique, I think. Probably not unique in the strict sense of the word, but
Sure. I've never heard of it
extremely
personally, so
uncommon. Yeah.
yeah.
But she writes about it with a lot of care and honesty. Doesn't put, I think she doesn't really pull that many punches, right? She's not like, she doesn't praise like adoption as like a 100% good all the time, right? She's willing to put some of the truth out there, of the realities, and it was just I was happy to see that this book, that the memoir was published, and like it was so well received and people were reading it, and she does a lot of work, with just trying to get more and more, Asian Americans, I think especially Asian women, published, right, and writing. So yeah, that was my favorite book.
I need to give it a read. I have a copy, but I never actually got past like the first 20 pages. So
It's good. It's good.
if you're saying that, I'll take it to heart.
I mean, I wish that sometimes she had gone like harder on some topics, but that's not her, right? Like that's not what she was. So I it was I think she was being very honest about from her how she was feeling, right?
Sure.
Just because she doesn't believe or say it in the way that I want it to be said doesn't mean it's bad, right? It's just that's how she's feeling. So yeah.
Nice.
All right. Third question.
I'm looking at the next question.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh yeah. When do you know it's time to write off an Asian American that's cucked for America, and when do you think they deserve leeway?
I mean, do you have an immediate thought on that?
No. You go for it.
I'll go first while you mull that over.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the type of person that really, at this point in my life, doesn't give leeway anymore. And part of the reason is because, and this is mostly luck, really. And this is from someone that we really like and respect. So shout out to her. I mean, we all know her. I forgot her handle on Twitter right now, but we all follow her. The Boba Cyclist, and
yeah.
and so I really don't put up with this shit anymore. I used to when I was younger because it was limited by the amount of Asian people that I had exposure to
Sure.
or could really plausibly meet. So
Right.
I would put up with all kinds of shit, even if I didn't think it was respectable. Here's a perfect example of someone that I was friends with that I put up with some of their bullshit that I absolutely do not put up with now. Is I remember there was this Korean guy that was in my high school that had moved there in 9th grade. So we didn't know each other until high school. And there was this white guy that came over while I was over there too.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom made kimchi bokkeumbap. And it was delicious.
Yeah.
But what this guy said was he was apologetic and self-deprecating by saying to the white kid, "Hey man, I'm sorry for this chinked out food." And he said chinked out. And like even then, like I didn't end friendship with him, but I definitely lost a lot of respect for him in that moment. Even at that young age, I was like, "The fuck are you doing? That's your own mother." So,
that's crazy.
But that's an example of like the sort of self-deprecation or self-hatred that is very typical of Asian Americans that grew up in very racist settings and just internalized that self-hatred and white supremacy as if it was just a normal thing that everyone should put up with. So I really, honestly, I think that example speaks to what I don't put up with now, which is if you are self-deprecating for ingratiating yourself to white people
Yeah.
or making it seem like you're more relatable by joking about yourself in a very self-hating sort of way. I think that in and of itself is cucked for America. And I write them off immediately because
Yeah.
any Asian person that I deeply respect, whether they're Asian American, the children of immigrants, adoptees, or if they're
Right.
Asian people, is they have a certain level of respect for their ancestry and where they come from
Yeah.
because that's a core facet to who they are as human beings, regardless of how explicitly or how often they think about it. At the end of the day, you still need to have respect for it because it forms the basis of your humanity. And if you can't
Yeah.
respect that
Yeah.
and it's just a joke, then I think you're a joke. So I don't put up with that shit. And let's see here. I never trust
Yeah. So I never trusted
Jin that talks
an Asian
about
that talk shit about their parents to people they don't know well,
yeah.
or even if they do know them well, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's just like your parents loved you. They sacrificed a lot of things,
Yeah.
and they went through a lot of humiliation, shame, and embarrassment of like not being native English speakers or being acculturated in American or Western culture, only for you to make fun of them to other people that don't have the context. You're a fucking bum.
Yeah.
That is fucking bum shit.
Costed me a date or two. Hell yeah, man. Like, look,
Yeah.
that's what I was saying before, right? Like, you have to have a bottom line, and a good bottom line is that you don't talk shit about your parents to other people that you don't know well, especially if it's like a first date or whatever, right? Or anything else where they would show like their ass, right?
Yeah, because like when you dig a little bit deeper, what's the reason why they're doing that? And the
Yeah.
only reason or conclusion that I can come to is that they realize in your average white person's perception that Asianness is shameful or something to be embarrassed of. And you got to acknowledge it by knocking it down a peg, even though it's core to who you are as a person and as a human being. So if you're so willing to do that, for an audience of people that otherwise don't really care, then, what does that really say about yourself? Respect yourself.
Yeah.
Like I don't I, I guess I see it this way, even if it doesn't have anything to do with race. Like, say if it's just some guy who's always just like, oh, I'm ugly and no one likes me and I'm stupid and I can't do anything. That's so fucking irritating to be around that, like, I don't
Yeah.
tolerate that. No
Yeah.
one should tolerate that. If you're an adult that's over age 25 and you're saying that shit publicly, then go to therapy because no one wants to listen to that.
Dude,
Period.
yeah.
No reasonable adult talks about themselves that way publicly. You can think
I
that,
agree.
and those are reasonable human thoughts and insecurities. That's fine. But the way you choose to air them
Yeah.
is going to make the difference between whether I think you're a reasonable human being that has reasonable insecurities or reasonable neuroses
Yeah.
and someone that's just like a fucking miserable piece of shit that I don't want to be around. Ugh.
Absolutely. Um
Thank you, Danielle.
yeah. That's for you, Kyle. It should be under your name, not over here. I will say that depending on the severity of the offense, right? Depending on how shitty this person is being in terms of like being subservient or like insulting their own race or sort of being that obsequious sort of minority, and it doesn't even have to be doing it to like a white person. It could be doing it to anybody, like being just acting that way in general. But yeah, it's certainly more irritating if they're doing it to try to ingratiate themselves, like you said, to white people or to like non-Asians, right? I and how many times it's happened with this particular person. I will still give some leeway to adoptees that I know if I know them personally, or I just won't write off an adoptee like right away.
You are much kinder than me, sir.
Yeah, it's just but I have a lot lower tolerance level than I used to with it.
You still have a kind heart. I would immediately
maybe
be like,
I do.
get
And
the
maybe I'm being
fuck out of
naive,
here.
but this is just it's a very short leash, but I try to at least have some level.
Yeah, but really, at the end of the day, if I was more patient, like that's what I aspire to be. Is like I think just because of the things that I've dealt with in my own life personally, that I have absolutely no fucking patience for that fucking shit.
Yeah.
And how I
No, I
feel
hear
like
you.
that perpetuates that sort of treatment. But, at the end of the day, I hope to, once my heart is a little bit more healed and I feel like I have bigger things to be concerned about, like having kids or something like that, maybe I will. I really hope to grant people more grace with the hope to be able to teach them to be better rather than just immediately dismissing them and being like, you're a fucking stupid piece of shit and I don't ever want to see you again. So I think what you're doing is admirable stuff. I really do.
Oh,
Because that's what I would do if I was a better person, but I'm
no,
not
I just
yet.
thank you, but no, I don't know. I don't know. I always have just a little bit of more patience for my fellow adoptee. That's all.
And actually, I'm gonna give one more example of something specific that's been popping up recently. That
Okay.
is something that makes me immediately write someone off and thinks they're cucked for America. And that is someone that is either Chinese or not Chinese
Mm,
saying bad things about other Chinese people. Like
mm.
if you are Korean, being like, well, you can't say that about me. I'm not Chinese, I'm Korean. Or
Oh
if
yeah,
or if you're ethnically Chinese, being like, no, 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 I'm not like those Chinese people. See, my parents immigrated here a long time ago. I'm basically an American. And it's just like, just because there's tensions and issues politically with China right now, uh, doesn't mean that you need to deflect from racism by throwing other people under the bus. So if you're willing to throw people under the
yeah,
bus,
yeah,
I mean, it's sort of like if you're an Indian American after 9/11 and being like, no, 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 I'm not a Muslim, I'm not an Arab, I'm Indian. It's just like you're still perpetuating the hate against people that are going to be mistaken for people that are in the same group as you. So you're not really doing yourself any favors by making that distinction. If anything, you're showing your ass while also increasing discrimination against the people that actually are the target
yeah,
and people that look like you who are accidentally going to be targets because there is no nuance or there is no sophistication when it comes to who's a target of racism and discrimination.
yeah.
So that is, like Alex said, the new shit test. And I have my eye on that and I don't like it.
Nope, nope. So yeah, I think that's it. That's as much as that. You have the final word on that for sure. And then the last question for now, pretty long one. And you know what? Stop the scrolling. Edit. No scroll.
Yeah, don't scroll it.
Yeah. So, what do non-adoptee Asians in America misunderstand the most about the adoptee experience, if anything? What do
It's
non-adoptee Asians in America misunderstand the most about the adoptee experience, if anything?
I'll start with one if you don't have an immediate answer and then we can go from there.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So this might be obvious, but given how many people don't really make this explicit distinction, I think it is a misunderstanding. And what I think non adoptee Asians in America misunderstand the most about the adoptee experience or don't fully comprehend
Mm,
is how different it is to experience having white parents in comparison to having white parents that teach you the culture you're from and that look like you. I mean, that might seem obvious, right? Like
mm,
seeing an adopted kid out in public with white parents. But I think that's where the thinking or the elaboration of a witness to that just tends to stop. But I guess when it comes to anything that I know about Asia, anything that I know about any particular country in East Asia, any experience that I've had traveling, any experience that I have with language, understanding languages, things like that, that was something I had to do completely on my own with no help. Like,
yeah.
thank God for the internet, because if it was pre-internet, I wouldn't have fucking learned like 1/8 of the shit that I know now. But everything that I learned and everything that sort of primed me to be able to introduce myself to Asian people and start networking with and associating with Asian people came from like gaming it out in my head and being online and being like, okay, well, these are sorts of the things that Asian people are interested in. I was on Asian
Right.
Avenue, what kind
Right.
of movies they like,
Yeah.
what kinds of hobbies they have. And I mean, to really come from a background where you have no reference points at all. And I was lucky to have parents that didn't feel alienated or threatened by me being around Asian people. I feel like a majority of adoptive parents who are white with Asian children do feel that way, and they actively become a hindrance to their children being able to explore that. I mean, I'm not sure how much of that is the case now with kids that are growing up as adoptees. I don't know, maybe parents are more liberal, but at least when it comes to people that are my age and older,
Hmm.
a majority, more than 50% easily, of parents felt threatened by their kids exploring their heritage or just connections with Asian culture more. And I think it takes a lot of mental exploration and a lot of disposing of things you've been taught as a kid to be able to get to that point. So it's sort of like I feel confident about a lot of things now,
Hmm.
especially in comparison to people that haven't had the same sorts of emotional journey that I've had in terms of like my level of certainty about things or my confidence in what I believe, because I've had to internalize a lot of cultural things and practices and beliefs to survive. And then once I was able to get out of the shitty places where I needed to survive, completely discard all of that and be comfortable with that.
Right.
And I think a lot of people aren't capable of doing that because they haven't been forced to. Whereas for me, it's like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something I had to do. And it's like, I could choose to just live the way that I learned to live when I was a kid in an effort to not have to completely retransform my life for like my outlook on things. But I saw that as sort of like a requirement to be able to be a healthy adult. I knew that the beliefs I was taught by around age 14 were not good for me.
Mm.
I knew I had to look to something else. I didn't
Hmm.
know exactly what at the time, but by college I figured out, hey, I'm going to start looking more towards Asia, more towards Asian people. We'll see where it goes. And thankfully it has
Right.
worked out for me. But I do think it is very difficult to comprehend what it's like to have white parents because, I mean, regardless of how good your white parents are or how smart or how sophisticated your white parents are, there's still a lot of blind spots just on the basis of being
Yeah.
white and
Yeah.
lack of experience that comes from being white. And, I would say
And the rest of the family too. It's not family
mm,
isn't just
that too.
the nuclear family, like the immediate
And
family, right?
and
It's
so in
whole
another way,
extended family, right?
exactly.
In some cases, in
Absolutely.
most cases, right?
That was the case for me, where like my parents, when it came to their attitude toward me and my ability to just do things freely was fine. But my extended family just saw me as this fucking thing that was imported and just didn't treat me the same way as other children in the family. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the attitude just based on various things that have happened in my life. And the fact that my mom is sick right now and I'm taking care of her by myself,
Yeah,
I'm
you
like,
are.
fuck my adopted family. I mean,
Right.
love my parents, but fuck the rest of them. I don't talk to them on that basis. And I guess, with that in mind, the fuck my adoptive family in mind, I think when I see a lot of shit on Twitter and on the internet of children of immigrants who are Asian people that make up these fictional stories or have these projects that need to be kickstarted about like dreaming about having white parents and how much more supportive they would have been or how much better it would have been
Yeah.
for their emotional
I
health as an
always
adult. That
I
makes me
always
fucking
yeah.
cringe.
I always
It's just
chuckle
like, yeah,
when
I would trade for your abusive parents versus living under like white people any fucking time. I can say that. And it's solely on the basis of at least you have an idea of where you come from and you have a cohesive sense for who you are and where you come from, regardless of how bad things are. Yeah, and there was this one I
wait,
think Filipina American lady who
did
had
YouTube censor the fuck? Or did you do that, Danielle?
It's probably YouTube.
YouTube. Oh, the damn YouTube filters.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But so that's an example I think of where there's a romanticization of
Yeah.
having white parents where it's just like, well, considering where you would have been and what you would have lacked by the time you're an adult, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Oh, that's very considerate.
Yeah, no, I always chuckle when I see Asian Americans express some just, idealistic view of like how white people are or white parents treat their children, or it's like contrasted against how the evil Asian parents are. And I always just chuckle at it because it's like I had white parents and I had fine parents, but they were not like any more lovey-dovey. Like my dad was never. My dad was not any more like, you know, you did great, son, or like, I love you, son, any more than like the stereotypical Asian dad would do that. Like he hardly ever said that, if at all. Like actually, a big part of what I went to therapy as a kid, or like when I was in college and like as a young adult, was getting through like my resentments at the fact that like even when he was proud of me, he never said it. Right? He never even expressed that he was happy that I did X, Y, or Z well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of like, oh yeah, of course you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get A pluses and whatever, right? Like when I was playing sports, like he was just angry that I wasn't doing better. Not that like I did well. It was like you should have done better. Like you're not playing it right. So like I had to process a lot of that. And it's just so funny to me when like there's some Asian people, yeah, yeah, or like they're so supportive. I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, he was supportive in that, like, he would, he took care of us, so he earned money, so he had food on the table and a nice house, and like he paid for like my sports leagues and like my prep classes and all this. He was supportive in that sense, right? But he wasn't supportive in this like fairy tale sense of like every day he'd
I
come
love
in
you,
and
son.
I love you, son, right? Like, no, he didn't do that. And my mom was more that way. And so,
Sure.
but like, it wasn't, the sitcoms and the movies and all these things that, like, and no white American, right? Um, So I just chuckle at it because I'm like, they just don't know. Like they like they look at their friends' family. Like everyone looks at families from the outside. They're
Yep.
like, oh, this family's doing great, right? Everyone's getting along, right? And it's only the really super duper dysfunctional ones where you can actually see it from the outside. Most
Yep.
families are very good at hiding it.
Absolutely.
So for Asian people who grew up in their own, in their biological families with like Asian parents and extended family, they're looking at the white family in their towns where they live, or in the city, or like their friends, and being like, oh, they look so, they're so happy, they're much happier, and like they might see like the one moment where like the parents are affectionate and sort of being like, oh, it's like blown up in their mind. So I find that funny. And sorry about my choppy internet. So like from the general perspective of what Asians in America that are not adoptees misunderstand, I think that your answer is good. Uh, but we don't get treated like we're white. I'll say that. Like we get treated just like any other Asian person.
Yep.
There's no special way that they treat Asian adoptees versus other Asians they might see. Like we're just Asian because we look Asian, unless we happen to not be look Asians, which we'll get into with the am I the asshole thing. But if we get to that, but like we're not treated any differently, right? There's no special like way for them to detect it. Oh no, this is the one that was raised by the whites. None of that. Like we just get treated like anyone else. any other Asian person. If they, so I think that's something that's misunderstood. But yeah, and I thought it was interesting, Kyle, when you're talking about how like you're happy that you have the internet, so that at least you could do some like sort of home study or self study
Yeah,
of Asian culture and stuff like that. And I think that you have a point there to an extent, because certainly it's easier to do some self research and maybe find uh, Asian people to connect with, just people to connect with in general. The internet has made that easier, but you can never really make that much progress or really sort of connect with your Asian heritage or what it means to be Asian American unless you do the real world work of just that very analog work of you get out there and meet people, or
absolutely.
you have like one-on-one emails or chats or phone calls with people if they happen to be too far away. You can't avoid that, right? So like you can't just adoptees can't just rely on, or even Asian Americans who are trying to connect with this stuff can't just rely on, I'm just going to use the internet. I'm just going to watch YouTube videos and like TikToks and, tweet support for Asian people,
Yep.
or whatever, and not actually like connect with people in real life. That it, if you're only going to do it online, then that's just that's not going to work.
I mean, I'll go as far to say is that's loser shit. I mean, regardless of the intentions behind it, in the sense that like in order for me to get as comfortable as I have been, in order for me to establish relationships with the closeness that I have, I've had to take a lot of L's. I had to be very
Yeah.
ashamed and embarrassed in a lot of occasions. I mean, the Korean church stuff that I've talked about previously is a perfect example. I had to fucking goof in real life in order to realize what's a faux pas and what's something good that people like, but something that's true to myself. And
That's just life, man.
I mean, spending more time on Twitter these days just because I have the free time to. Like, I look at a lot of people who live their lives pretty much solely online, and I'm kind of like, that's fucking sad shit because there's no stakes to anything. So it's very easy to be nice, or it's very easy to say, hey, this person fucking sucks. This person's a fucking loser. But if you don't have the ability to say these sorts of things in real life or have the experience of knowing people's reactions when you're either very kind and generous to them or if you're being a fucking dick, like, again, it's role playing. It's just gaming it out in your head. It's not doing anything in reality beyond giving you some validation that you feel comfortable being vulnerable up to a certain point and then being like, okay, that's enough. I don't want to show anymore, don't want to expose anymore, don't want to show my neuroses and mental illnesses. None of that. So I mean, there's a certain lack of a need to exhibit self-control in socializing in internet settings that I think prevents you from experiencing some of the worst and some of the best things that come out of social relationships as a result. So if you're only doing things online, you're missing 80% plus of the whole experience. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. So yeah. Did you have anything else to add with that?
I do. So
Go
once
for it.
again, this is my weekly need to pee
Oh, that's right.
because I've been drinking. So I need you to distract the audience for about 60 to 120 seconds,
That's
and
so
I'll be
funny.
back as fast as I can. So here I go.
Okay, let's do it. So I wanted to go back to this comment that Danielle posted. Not necessarily in response to the question that I think this was posted on, but just that it's interesting interacting with like just random Asian people that I don't know out in the world, because my Uber driver or my Lyft driver yesterday, because I was taking a Lyft to go to a restaurant um, where I was meeting my wife and a couple friend of ours to have dinner, and the cab driver was a Filipino, and I got in, and I'm just polite or whatever, and I was helping him direct. I was helping to direct him around like my condo complex, a little complex to get out, and then the street is one way. And he thanks me for being nice to him, and I thought it was so weird. He was like, "Thanks for being nice to me." I'm like, "Oh yeah, no problem, man. Sure." And he was like, "Oh, yesterday I was just, people were so mean to me, and like, they said they were gonna, they're gonna like try to steal my car or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on, man?" And we just started getting talk about it, and I was like, dude, just stay around this area. No one's gonna mess with you. And I was like, and part of the reason why I like where I live is because it's so Asian, and um, I was like, especially in this sort of uh, atmosphere we have in New York, New Jersey, and a lot of places of the country with all this anti-Asian hatred. Like, we got to stick together, and we got to sort of look out for each other. And the subway pushing thing came up, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, a Filipino was pushed into the subway and killed and all that stuff, or one of us," he said. And I was like, "Yeah, so Michelle Go and all that." So it's in people's minds, right? Like, it's just a random cabbie, uh, Lyft driver, and it, and we just had a good chat because it was only like a 5-10 minute ride, and uh, it just stuck with me because he didn't know me, and he kept thanking me for being nice to him, and I was like, dude, I got you, man. Like, I'm not gonna be mean. I'm not mean to anyone, but like, I'm especially not gonna be mean to you. So it was he's yeah. So that came to my mind when I saw that comment. Um,
I only heard like the last 20 seconds of that, but my reaction to that last 20 seconds is I really fucking hate when like people are grateful to me when I'm nice to them, because it shows that they're used to being mistreated, and
yeah,
usually it's for no good reason. Like, they aren't being assholes. They're
no,
just working some sort of job that a lot of people for some reason don't have respect for.
oh,
And
certainly a Lyft driver, like a cab driver, no one respects people. Cab
I
drivers.
guess my example of like someone that I try to go out of my way to be nice to, that a lot of people like treat like shit, are like the janitorial staff at every
Yeah,
office job I've ever
yeah,
worked at. Like, people don't even fucking look them in the eye, and I'm always like trying to at least say hi and try to learn their name just to let them know I think they're human beings. So, shout out to the people that do the jobs that aren't respected, even though they're working harder than I am.
yeah, yeah. They're the ones like keeping shit clean. You know what I mean? Like, the robots ain't doing that stuff yet.
Yeah.
Um, the AI chat. Yeah, like I don't. Yeah, it caught me off guard when he was like thanking me for being nice to him, and I was like, dude, it made me. It stuck. I mean, I'm still thinking about it, and it stuck with me just because I'm like, why are you thanking me for just being polite and like whatever? Because I'm just thinking, like, if this is nice, I wonder how other people
No,
treat
exactly.
him or even look at him, right? Like, most people don't even look at him, right?
Yeah, that's
Most
that's
people don't
one
even
thing that
look at
really
the
gets
cab
me.
drivers, right? It's like they're trying to pretend that they're just in an autonomous car that like got there somehow. Like, they're just sitting in the back. I'm like, and it's fine. Like, you don't have to like have a conversation with them, but like, say like hi when you get in,
Yeah.
and like thank them when you get out. And like, same thing with like a bus driver. When I get in, or when I get on the bus, and then when I leave, I say thank you. More than half the people don't say anything to the
Yeah,
bus
anything
drivers.
at all.
They don't say they don't. They're not. They don't do anything. They don't even look at them. They just. Go. I'm like, what? Like, how does that work? Um. So I don't get it. So it was sort of like a I'm both sad and angry moment. Um.
No,
But
I
yeah.
feel that completely.
All right. Cool. So let's pivot. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to like continue to I'm monitoring or trying to monitor um, the Twitter. So if you have any questions, or you can just put them in the chat if you have any more. But we did want to talk about this AITA, or the "Am I the Asshole" post, which is a subreddit where people post their like stories and ask the internet and random internet strangers if they're the asshole in the situation or not the asshole in the situation. And this was making the Twitter and the social media rounds because it was about Asians. But do you want to just I'll share it. But in this,
I'll give the breakdown too. I won't read all of it. I'll just
no, don't read all.
I'll read the important parts. All right. So basically, this white guy is asking this subreddit, so am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend she's, quote, not Korean enough? So he's 23 and white. His now ex-girlfriend, 23 and mostly white, but she is 1/4 Korean. Up to this point, she hasn't been connected to Korean culture, and she looks white. Her face doesn't look Asian at all.
Sorry. Why is calling her the girlfriend throughout this thing more clear than doing ex-girlfriend? How is that more clear?
It's not. I think he's just trying to save a little bit of face because he probably knows deep down that what we're about to say is what ended his relationship, but he's clearly in denial.
Yeah, so I just thought this was hilarious. So anyway.
Yeah, it's 2 extra letters, and like when you're reading it, it doesn't really make.
Doesn't matter if she's your girlfriend currently or was at the time of the story. It doesn't matter.
But I guess up to this point, she wasn't really connected to Korean culture.
Yes.
But I guess a few months ago, her Korean uncle introduced her to food, history, taught her the alphabet, couple other things. And now she's expressing a deeper interest in it. The house is full of kimchi and gochujang. She's learning to cook Asian food.
You should thank her for that. You taste.
Well, I mean, she tried to make me eat the food, but he hates spicy food because he sucks. And
these are not that spicy, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Korean spicy is like
food is not
mild
spicy
to like every other cuisine that has spicy food. I realized that the hard way a long time ago. But I guess he didn't like that food. And
when she tried to make it,
yeah,
then he would just make his own food or order it.
Like that's an instant red flag.
She was disappointed but agreed. So this is a weird sentence too. Agreed. Like, what do you mean agreed? What is there for her to agree to? Like,
yeah, sure. I'll agree to when I cook Korean food, you can make your own food or get your own food.
I guess, but it's just a weird sentence. Like, I don't know. But yeah, so she's trying to cook this stuff. Like, this food's there, and like, okay, look, my dad growing up, like, we couldn't really have any kimchi in the house because like he could smell it from like a mile away and he hated the smell of it. Which sucked. I wish it had been possible to have kimchi in the house, but like I guess some people are sensitive. But gochujang, that doesn't smell. Like as long as you keep it in the container, it's not like gonna smell the house up. Weird.
Yeah, I mean that's just white people placebo effect. Yeah. Where like if they see something they don't like, they'll say it smells bad.
Yeah, they just say it, right? Even if it doesn't smell at all, they just say it smells bad.
No, exactly, just to make you feel bad about it.
Yeah, exactly. But that wasn't enough. Every time she cooks, it makes the whole apartment stink.
I mean, just the tone with which he's saying stuff, you already know what perspective he's coming from and what he's all about. And so he says, it's stinking up the apartment. He said he thought kimchi was gross. Parenthetical, it has bacteria in it.
It has bacteria in it.
Fucking goofy as fuck, considering
it has bacteria
all the white people foods that have bacteria, like cheese.
Is anyone going to tell him about cheese?
Yeah, every fucking dairy product that white people love. Yeah, so he thought that she was just going to experiment for a while, but it turns out she wanted to keep going. And so she got all serious saying that he was culturally insensitive. Uh, she
Wait,
didn't
wait,
say racist,
sorry, wait a minute.
but she
So then
inferred it.
he also said, I was sick of washing her rice. What?
I guess he doesn't like taking the extra couple minutes to get the starch out. He likes having the starchy rice.
And getting my own food. What a dick. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. So she was cooking all this food because she said it was making her happy and it made her feel closer to her Korean grandfather who died before she was born. And she felt like I was taking away something from her that made her really happy. I
And that
said
I've
it's
done this before. And that he's done this before. So that is key right there.
Yeah, you know, the pressure's building. And so he's like, no, I don't think it's culturally insensitive to not want to smell like spicy fish. But I guess case in point is that he thinks she is basically white. She's never been to Korea, doesn't speak Korean, and doesn't look Korean. No one would look at her and know that she's anything but white. I told her that she's no better than a white girl trying to act special, and by her logic, I could accuse her of cultural appropriation. She teared up and went into a big rant about how she wasn't fully Korean and she knows it and wasn't raised with the culture, but she's reconnecting. She wanted to be closer to her family's culture, and I have no right to try and take away her joy. We broke up a week later for completely unrelated reasons.
Completely. Maybe the he's done this before part.
But my friends found out about the situation, and some of them have been telling me I was an insensitive jerk. Am I the
asshole? Yes, you are.
So I first of all, I'll react by saying I think it's obvious to everyone that reads this, even white people, that this person is an asshole.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth discussing from the perspective of this general notion of not being Korean enough. And so I guess, you know, aside from this guy being an asshole, I guess my initial response to this, and this was brought up to me by question asker George, was my thoughts on what this thread was saying and the notion of not being Korean enough. And I guess I haven't fully articulated it yet because I think it's very complicated. I think my first initial reaction is hey, I've heard that before in my own life, and I've heard it from Korean people from time to time. And I guess I would say, first of all, that if there's any validity to that statement at all, which I'm skeptical on, but if there is any validity, it's not going to come from a white person that has no exposure to this culture and is just making the judgment to say that someone is not good enough to a standard they don't understand or can articulate themselves. So if it should be coming from anyone at all, it shouldn't be coming from a white person. That's my immediate knee-jerk or visceral reaction to that.
Right.
And I guess my second reaction is that when it comes to someone being Korean versus not Korean, I think that's where it gets a lot more blurry. But I think there are clear examples of where you can say someone is not Korean. Perfect example would be that fucking weird English guy, Ollie London, who did like 30 surgeries to give himself the Oriental look and say that he's a transracial, quote, Korean.
He's just insane, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, that to me, that's a clear example of someone that is clearly not Korean, so that shouldn't even be a discussion. But I guess that makes me kind of think to myself, well, is there any validity or is there any worth in this discussion of there being notions or measures of being Asian or being Korean? And, you know, I kind of waver between the two in terms of it. Yes, there's some validity to it. And no, this is just harmful stuff. that is not productive to discuss in any way. And I guess while I sort of think about that more myself, I guess, do you have any immediate thoughts as it relates to, obviously this guy's an asshole,
Right.
but what do you think about the conversation about being Korean enough, not Korean enough, or measuring that in any way?
Um, she's partly Korean. She has the Korean uncle, right? She has so from a and I don't like from that genetic component, if you want to call it that. She's at least got partial claim to not just be like she's not just some like um white Anglo-Saxon Protestant or some sort of like German British like Western European white uh person or white woman trying to act special like the poster was saying, like, so she's not quite like that. And so I think it's fine for her if she's, and it seems like what the you know assuming this isn't just a troll or like a chat GPT thing,
Hmm.
then she's doing more than just the minimum, right? Like she has an uncle that she can talk to. Like she's trying to learn the language a bit. She's not just going to a restaurant to taste the food, right? She's trying to make it, right? Which is a different animal, right? You're much more engaged with it when you're trying to make it than just going to a restaurant to eat it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so it seems like it's a genuine thing. It doesn't seem like she's trying to like create a social media presence of follow me in my journey as I rediscover my Koreanness, right? And reconnect. She's not doing that. This is just a complete personal thing, right? Um, so I don't, I don't, I don't think it's a constructive conversation to be like, are you? Is it legitimate for her to do this, or is she Korean enough, or things like that. Like for her personally, she does have a connection, right? So it's not like she just thought, "Oh, I like K-pop, so now I'm honorary." Yeah, she's not pulling a Gwen Stefani where she's like, "Oh, I spent some time in Japan or something," or my dad spent some time in Japan, so now like I'm connected to Japan in some way. So like and she can go to Korea, right? Like she can go to Korea and do all those things. She can't control whether she looks Korean. I hope she doesn't get surgeries to look more Korean, but like she has a legitimate, in my eyes, right? Because she has that living uncle, um, to do this. Even if the uncle died, right? Like she has some of the Korean in her. Um, and she has a connection to the family to do it. Because I don't want to get into like a blood quanta
No,
argument,
exactly.
because that's sort of like a very, it has not served the Native Americans well to sort of get down to that sort of idea. So I think it's fine what she's doing. I think this ex-boyfriend, for clarity, um, he was just being a jerk. Like, if you don't like the food, that's fine. You don't have to like the food. You don't have to like the smells. You can have a constructive big boy, big girl conversation about it, saying, like, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this really does irritate me. Maybe we can find some way where we can try to mitigate the smells. Open windows, like close doors, so that they don't go into like certain spaces, or you can have an adult conversation, especially if they're 23, right? Like more than old enough, in my opinion, to be able to like have that conversation, especially if you're living together, right? To be like, how can we make this work, right?
Hmm.
But obviously, he doesn't care to do that. He just wants her to stop. He wants to control it. Um,
Don't let me
and
see it.
Yeah, like don't let me, like I'm sick of washing her rice. Like the first time I read this, I thought he was upset that she washed her own rice, but now reading that he's sick of washing her rice. So I guess he's washing the rice? Why I thought he didn't like to do any of this. So maybe he wants to have rice. So she's like, why don't we just make one batch of rice? But you need to
No, I
wash
want
it
my
first.
unwashed rice.
So instead of doing two, you know, um, so yeah, like he's just being a jerk. Um, you know, assuming the characterization of how she's going about learning more about her Korean heritage is true. Then she's doing more than the bare minimum, right? She's doing a good amount, and it's for her to do. Like maybe it is just a phase. I don't know. But she's okay. She can do that. And then if she wants to just go back to being whatever before then that's fine too, I guess. But um, yeah, like just I don't think there's anything wrong with her doing it. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I don't
There's
think
no
so either.
cultural appropriation, right? Again, she's not doing a Gwen Stefani.
Yeah, because I guess if I really dig deeper in the notion of appropriation or anything that would be inappropriate to incorporating this into your identity, and I guess I sort of think about like the level of respect you have for what you're learning or what you're doing, and I guess is there an audience for it? Um, and those would be the two factors on whether or not I would respect it earnestly as someone connecting with their culture or someone that seems like they're chasing clout or trying to seem
Yeah,
more compelling or interesting than they actually are. And, like you said, since it seems like she's not blogging about this for an audience to seem like, hey guys, I'm a K-pop fan and now I'm becoming Korean with all this Korean stuff I'm doing. It seems like she's incorporating these cultural things through forming or strengthening relationships with people from this culture that she wants to be more deeply connected to. And I guess when I think about when I think about notions of like white culture versus say black culture in America, I
mm,
guess when I think of white culture, I immediately think boom, consumption. Whereas if I think of black culture, I think of exchange of ideas.
that's
And
interesting.
that might just be a little bit hard on white people, but that's just my sort of high level intuitive reading of it. And I feel like there is a certain level of exchange of knowledge and ideas that I respect more here than just simply doing stuff like, oh, I listen to K-pop now, so I'm becoming more connected with my Koreanness. I mean, I think that can be a gateway, but I also don't think that that forms a substantial enough connection with the culture or people within that culture to really say that you are actually becoming closer to it. But, based on everything that I read right here, even from this third party perspective of someone that clearly doesn't like this shit, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with what she's doing right here. I mean, she's forming earnest relationships with people
Yeah,
that are family members,
yeah,
and she's putting in the effort to learn in order to be able to communicate and share time with these people.
yeah,
I mean, it seems like everything is above board for me. I think there, like I said, I think there are certain examples or certain circumstances, like clearly doing things for an audience, or if you are not ethnically Korean at all and you're like doing crazy shit like getting plastic surgeries to say that you're actually Korean.
yeah,
Those are examples that are clearly wrong and clearly fall outside of any sort of consideration of connection with culture.
yeah,
But I really do feel like that if someone seems like they are earnestly making a connection and it's not for showing off in any obvious way, then it's not really for me to scrutinize in the sense that, like, having been under that sort of scrutiny myself, just being an adopted person,
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like the only people that tend to express sentiments like you are not Korean enough, you are not whatever enough, have their own sorts of insecurities that would make them comfortable enough saying that sort of shit to other people.
Yeah, because I have honestly never had a Korean in Korea that I've had any sort of interaction with, yeah, deep enough or long enough, or just that would told me that, like, oh, you're not Korean, or like you're not Korean enough just because you weren't raised here. Um, like I mean, I'm struggling even like with Korean Americans. Um, maybe a few of them, but like I don't think I've maybe they've never said it. Maybe but no one's ever expressed to me in words. Um, and maybe I was just oblivious because maybe they avoided me, so by their actions they were saying this.
Yeah.
But like anyone I've ever talked to in Korea, I've been to Korea a few times, and it's not like I've talked to that many people, but I've had some time there and talked to some amount of people. Never did I get a sense that they thought like I wasn't Korean. Like in fact, like they were like, you need to become more Korean, right? Like you were born here, you belong here, right? There was just a lot of that. So, and I also like in the point this guy was saying, like you're just like a random work girl trying to be special, right? Or I'm like, I don't have a problem with anyone of any background, racial background, ethnic background, being like, I've learned I'm part X, right? Part Y. I want to learn more about those things, and to reconnect with them. If you want to use the word that the guy uses like, that is not a problem. Like, it is completely natural to be curious about where you come from, like the culture of your family. That is not like weird. That is not unless it's obviously done for clout on the internet or something. But like people want to know about their families all the time. Like you're asked in school to create your family tree.
Yeah, family trees.
People are into genealogy. There's a whole study of it, right? So for him to even say that is weird, and I think that's a big problem in America. People not wanting to know where they come from, right? The history of their families, and not just of their own families, but like what go beyond just sort of like your grandparents and maybe your great grandparents. Like, where did they come from? Like, were you always in America? Oh, they weren't always in America. Where did they come from? They were Italian or English or German or Polish or stuff. Like, there's no problem learning about that. But I don't think there's a thirst for it, right? Like Americans want to be like, we're American, and that's where it ends, right? Like it begins when we came to America, and it ends
when we die in America.
And we're not old enough for that yet. I don't think. So yeah, it's not weird to want to connect with where you come from, no matter however little part that might be. I don't think so.
And I guess, like, if I think about someone that is, say, a quarter Korean, and they move through the world in the United States of America where people don't perceive them to be Asian or Korean, I guess when I think about them putting in the effort to try and connect with that part of themselves, I guess that is being Asian, and Asian stuff is stigmatized enough where if someone is pursuing an earnest interest in that, I guess there's no large incentive to lie about it if you're going to put that much effort into it, because it will only bring additional scrutiny or additional people being like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you into this Chinese shit?
Right.
Like I think, I think you can always find examples of people chasing clout or being show offs or just making shit up about themselves to sound like interesting people.
Right.
But I don't think it happens enough where you can go in with that assumption for every person that shows a deeper interest in wanting to know more about where they come from. You know, like you said, I think it's natural for people to have that curiosity on where they come from. And if they have a background that doesn't have nearly as much information or as much discussion about it as, say, like Irish genealogy or whatever, then I think all the more reason for them to be interested in it, because there hasn't really been widespread conversation about what that's all about. So,
Yeah. And I mean, and this is just her sort of trying to like explore this part for herself, right? And maybe just because she's, you know, she's connected more with this particular uncle for whatever reason. And, you know, I think they mentioned like she never got to know her grandmother, right? Or grandfather, right? Um who died before she was born. Um but maybe heard about that grandfather through the uncle, right? Because presumably that's the uncle's dad, right? Um, so like I think this honestly, this feels like something that's more about um, she's trying to just connect with a family member, and part of that is because this uncle might be very proudly Korean or something like that, or maybe feels more like an outsider because it seems like he's the only Korean person or fully Korean person in the family. Um, that's alive
mhm.
or alive and living in the United States. Who knows what they have back in Korea? Um, so like that's completely human as well. Like that is understandable. Like that happens, right? Uh, so it doesn't seem like this is someone who's going to want to like to present as a white woman, but then like I am the Korean person and I'm going to speak as a Korean woman, right? It's like she's not doing that,
Yeah.
right? Which would be super annoying. I agree. It would be very annoying if she suddenly comes out looking, you know, like a you know white brunette lady, and then is like, no, I'm the Korean lady, and I'm going to speak for all the Korean women out there. I would yes, that would be annoying, but it doesn't seem like that's happening.
Mhm.
She's just doing it for herself, right? Um, so
Yeah, and I guess regardless of blood quantum or whatever, I feel like if someone is putting in effort and they're actually learning things, then that's worthy of some level of respect and appreciation. The only thing that I would look down upon and be like, shut up,
yeah,
is someone that doesn't put in the effort, doesn't really show any earnest interest in learning anything, but chooses to invoke racial things in conversation to say,
yeah,
oh, well, I'm the Asian one of the group. And I
right,
guess it would be
yes,
very annoying for me to hear that, and to hear it from someone that clearly doesn't move through the world being perceived as Asian. But that doesn't seem to be the case with this person, because it seems like she really is trying to put an effort through any means possible in the United States to be able to make that connection. And I think the most important part is that effort is done through interpersonal relationships and not
yes,
just through commodities and consumption. So I
right,
think there is something much deeper there that I think is enough effort and rare enough to be like, that's definitely something worth appreciating.
yeah, and just from like a general human perspective, it's like it's making her happy, and this guy's only reaction is like, it's stinky. I don't like. Stop doing
Yeah,
it.
you don't deserve to be happy because that shit stinks.
And she's like this. She's probably the happiest she's been in
Yeah,
like
in her
months or
entire life.
years, and he's just like, I don't like washing her rice.
It stinks like fish in here.
It's you know it's so funny. Like, so my wife's a great cook, I think, and I really enjoy her cooking. But yeah, she makes like the fish broth and stuff, and she'll cook with like the anchovies, and she always has like the frozen anchovies, so that
Yep.
like she can put some in like you know the soup bases and stuff. And she's always making, or like you know she'll grill up some meat, and so she'll close the doors to the bedrooms so that the smell doesn't go into the bedroom. And she has a much more sensitive sense of smell than I do. So, but I'm like, I kind of like the smell.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
do
care if
too.
it's
Yeah, I don't
But
care if it's
she's the one
anywhere.
who's like, oh, it's gonna be stinky, or it's gonna like it smells good, but you don't want it to linger and then it gets bad. This food smell.
Yeah.
So I just find it funny that like, I like the smell, or like we'll go to a restaurant and she's like, oh, the smell gets in all the clothes, and I'm like, I think it's fine, whatever. Like, we can
Yeah, I'm
just
the
put it in
same
the
way. I'm
wash.
like, hey, I like that stuff. So it
Yeah,
smells
yeah,
like that stuff. I just make the association.
right. But I don't know. I mean, part of me still thinks this thing is fake, because I still remember like we did. Tina and I did an old Tales from Angela podcast episode, I think, or maybe it was an old one that we might have recorded for Escape from Planet A, but we never released, where we talked about this other Reddit post, I think, and I forget where it was. It might have been in like one of the like Manosphere subreddits, and
Mhm.
it was like a perfectly encapsulated email to piss off Asian men, because it was like a dating related one.
Yeah.
And it was about like, white men and Asian women and that sort of dating thing. And it was like it hit
At every point.
every pain point, right? It pushed every button, right? And like, but it was just believable enough. And so like we're gonna talk about this, and we like talked about it, like, even though it's probably a troll, right? It's probably someone writing this, if it's fake, right? But like it was so well crafted a
Yeah.
troll that
Gotta
you're like,
respect the craft.
we've gotta. So like part of me believes that this particular post was probably a troll. Though one thing is that it was deleted. So the original post was removed. Um or maybe it was removed by the moderators. No, but it said so the auto mod actually put it in as a comment, right? So just in case it was removed.
Yeah.
But like, so maybe it was removed and I think the username was deleted too. So yeah, so like part of me feels like a troll wouldn't necessarily do that, right? The troll wouldn't necessarily just delete it, right? It's just a troll account, right? So why would they remove or delete these things?
Right.
So that is one tick in its favor that it is real. But part of me thinks this is just so, it just reads like a troll post,
Yeah, I know what you mean. If it hits all the beats, and
and
I
it's
guess
so
that's what's
written
difficult
weirdly,
about
right? It's like
these.
just written weirdly, like, I don't know. It's hard to
Yeah,
tell sometimes, though.
yeah, just like adding the little things like, I thought the kimchi was gross. Parenthetical, it has bacteria in it. Like that. That almost seems like bait. Just like it's so dumb.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
people did bring up dairy. Where is it? Um, they definitely brought it up. Where is it?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was clearly obvious that this guy was the asshole. If like your typical white Reddit commenter was like, "Yeah, this guy's a fucking asshole." Like, it's rare to find like an Asian person story where the commenters are in support of the Asian people being like, "Yeah, the guy's a fucking asshole." So, I mean, that's a point in favor of thinking this is possibly just fake bait. But I mean, it's so much in the realm of plausibility that I don't dismiss it either. So
Yeah.
it's tough to make the call.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Oh boy. Oop, wait until you find out about yogurt and cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And bread and beer. It's a fungus, but still, it's a living organism used to make very common foods. I hope this dude doesn't eat sauerkraut, blue cheese, yogurt, pickles, anything pickled. Also, he shits on washing rice but makes a comment about bacteria. My man, that's why you wash the rice. Or at least the reason people, not just Korean people, rinse their rice before cooking, especially the older it is and longer it's been sitting between uses. Especially sauerkraut, since it's practically the same thing with less spice. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's how you know it's
yeah,
real
it's the
funky.
pickled cabbage, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so they did. Yes, that final week, they definitely brought up cheese and other shit.
Clearly an asshole.
Yeah, that's why like those like lines like that, like the bacteria one, I'm like, oh, this could be a troll, man, or maybe it was a chat. It was one of the AIs. Like I wonder if I could get Chat GPT to make a post like this.
You know what? Commenter in the chat, Alex, actually requested, hey, write an Asian diaspora piece about writing fruit. And it generated something that was pretty fucking good. Just like eating fruit cut by your parents type shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was good.
I don't think I've ever used Chat GPT. I've been saying it
I haven't
GP, haven't I?
myself because I've been too lazy to take the 5 minutes to create an account. So you may encounter the
I have
same
to
barrier
sign
that
it.
I
I have
did.
to sign up.
I think
Okay,
so.
continue with Google. No, oh, damn it. I don't want to use our.
That's what
But
they do
anyway,
to you,
yeah,
man.
I'm gonna try to I'm gonna see if I can give it a prompt and get it to write one like this "Am I the asshole?" post.
Okay, yeah.
But we'll do that later because I kind of feel like it's somehow because the clever people will take one of those Chat GPT generated things and then like modify it a bit. But yeah. Okay. So we're coming up on an hour 45, 2 hours here.
Yeah.
I guess any other things to add or like any games you're playing recently?
No, man. I guess the only thing I can add, just like random stuff, is that I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2.
That's right. You
And
said you picked that up, right?
yeah, I mean, I started playing it in 2018. I played it for about 10 hours, put it down. This is the first time I'm picking it back up again, and now that I'm looking at it with fresh eyes, I really like playing it.
Dude, it's good.
It's very serene, very relaxing during the times that aren't meant to be tense. The writing's good. I mean, one thing I keep doing on Twitter is I keep posting like me riding on the horse at full speed, and then like I'm not really looking, and then I hit something and I
Oh
fly right
yeah,
off the fucking
you'll
horse.
die from that. You'll kill your
Yeah,
horse.
yeah. I keep getting my ass kicked by trees and like light poles and stuff.
Oh, is this in reference to Chat GPT?
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if it's generating stuff that good where it can pass as like as good or better than like your typical Vox blogger, then yeah, I'd be addicted to that shit too. I'm glad I'm just too lazy to go through the sign up process.
Yeah. But no, but Red Dead 2 is really good. I have it for PC and I'm going to continue start it again. Okay, so a lot of that. You know what I got frustrated though is that maybe they patch this out or like you can they have like a different control scheme that you can select.
Yeah.
But it was very easy to shoot the gun when you didn't mean to
Oh,
because it was like the
absolutely.
same button as like or very similar button presses to like holster it
Yep.
and shoot it or like so and it's one of those it's a very systemy game or a lot of systems.
Yes.
So
That's what stopped me in the first play.
Yeah,
Back in 18 was
and
like
very real. Like it wants to be
like
a big
needing to eat
simulation.
cans of beans to maintain my health core and my stamina core, shit like that.
It's
That was like there's
very
too much shit going on.
Yeah, it's like simulation, but also definitely game, but like tons and tons of simulation, like a lot of realism. And part of that realism is that if you just randomly shoot your gun in the air, like people are gonna like notice it and react to it like
No,
you would,
exactly.
normally.
Then you got a bounty on your head.
And yeah, and like the sheriffs will come.
Yep.
So yeah, so like I remember like I was just in like the hotel like in one of the first towns and I went up to like my room because I rented the room because I wanted to like stay there and I accidentally like shot my gun. I'm like, oh fuck, and then like I got killed. It was just so annoying. So I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this. So I haven't gone back to it, but I do need to go back to it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna play it again at some point because here's my thing. Like I bought it originally on Xbox One, and I bought it when I got an Xbox One X. And like it's been so long since I got it that I already had the PC version at this point, but I was
Yeah,
already
yeah,
like 20% through the game on Xbox.
yes.
So I'm playing it
You
with
don't want
that
to pay the.
compromised frame rate,
Yeah, yeah,
man. It's taken a while for me to get used to it again. It feels very cinematic. I mean, I'm
yeah.
used to playing like 120 1440p and like playing it. I mean, at least I have it in 4K, but playing
Yeah,
it at
yeah,
30 doesn't
yeah.
feel
I
nearly
know,
as
right?
good. So
Not as smooth for sure.
yeah.
It does make a difference. I think 30 to 60 is the big jump.
Mm-hmm.
Then obviously it seems like 60 to like 120 or 60 to 144 would be even a bigger jump. But I feel like the smoothness difference between 30 and 60
Yeah,
is
it's
just
much bigger.
much bigger than like the 60 to uh but at least for me perceptually, it just that there was a bigger difference there. Um and I
Absolutely.
loved the first Red Dead Redemption. And I played the heck out of that game and played it a lot. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, it was just disappointing to me that I never finished the second one. But
It's
I
because the
will.
second one is fucking long.
Yeah,
It's
it's long. It's harder too. It's like much more simulation. Because the technology has come a long way since the
yeah.
first one, right?
I mean, I've been playing it for about 30 hours and I'm still only about halfway through the main story. So
Yeah,
it'll probably take me about 60, 70 hours to get through that. So
yeah. So it'll
and
take me like
that's not
120
time
hours.
I really have as much as I did when I was in high school and college,
No,
I'll tell you that. So
that
and
definitely
games are
true.
only fucking getting longer too. So
Um, I've been mainly I mean, I finished a few weeks ago. The Ragnar, God of War Ragnarok. But
yeah.
I've picked up more recently. One of the Middle Earth games. So Middle Earth,
Yeah.
Shadow of War, which was the second one.
Yeah.
Um, a good friend of mine, who's a game developer. She knows someone who worked on that game, who designed the Nemesis system. So I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Such
it's
a
one of the
great
cooler
system.
systems.
He designed one of her friends designed it, and so I just think that game is a lot of fun, and I also like it a lot because you can tell the people who made it sort of like Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
unlike the people who made yeah. So I've been playing that. The orcs are just funny too because they're just like goofballs, even though they're like bloodthirsty. They're just goofballs. Um,
Yeah, I need to play it. I have no reference point for anything except kind of knowing about the Nemesis system.
yeah, and the combat is basically like an Arkham game, right?
Mhm.
But you have a sword and dagger and stuff, so it's not like just your fists and batarangs. It's like bow and arrow and sword fighting and stuff. Um, I think that's it. Oh, why would you ask? Of course, of course. Mass Effect is probably top 5 all time for me as a
Wow,
series.
that's really high. You
I
know,
think.
I would say top 20 for me. 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
20.
I am a huge Mass Effect fan. I will apologize for every game in the series, even Andromeda. I know people are like, Andromeda is the worst game ever made. No, it's not. It's very good in its own way. Um, Incredibly pretty game. I thought it was actually pretty brave of them to try to like break away from the original trilogy and Shepard and like that whole thing and try something new. They didn't really pull it off as well as they should have, but they tried. Everyone is always bitching and moaning about there's never any originality. No one ever does anything different with games. And then when people try to do something different and stumble a little bit, they just shit all over it. So like,
It's
what do you
true.
think? What do you think the studios are gonna do? Like, they're just gonna abandon it. So I don't, hopefully they go back to it and not just give us another iteration of the original trilogy. Um, but I think Mass Effect 2 is probably the best one in the series, though 3 is a close second. I know that the ending, everyone hates it. That's just the ending. It's fine. The rest of the game is amazing. Mass Effect 3's multiplayer was some of the best, unexpectedly good
Wow.
multiplayer.
I never got to play it. I was too late for it.
Yeah, well, no one's playing it now, but like when
Yeah.
it came out, it was pretty fun. I mean, it's a simple premise, but like you're basically just doing, it's just, well, I think there's a PvP multiplayer mode, but the really fun one was just like PvE, and it was like wave based, and then you had to like extract. But like the characters had, their fun abilities in the game. And it was a good mix. It was a good mix of um, like loot boxes and rewards, but it was like you kept getting rewards, right? So like there was steady progress. There were a
Yeah.
lot of different classes and things you could unlock, and um, it was surprisingly good for what was probably tacked on. So favorite one in the series, I'd say 2. I think 2 was the best because it was better gameplay than 1
By a large
by
margin.
a pretty large margin.
Good.
Yeah, I've heard Spec Ops: The Line is really good. I haven't played it just because I think it's an older game, so I'm sort of scared about how janky the gameplay might be, and because first-person shooters are not really my thing. But I've heard that it's really, really good in that like, um, it doesn't really glorify the fact that like you're a soldier. Like it really concentrates on like the horror of like what you got, like what they're doing, and like how it really takes a toll on like the people who are doing it, right? Like the soldiers are not just machines, right? They're human beings. So I heard that's really good, but I haven't played it. But yes, 2 is much better in terms of gameplay. The graphics took a big jump up too. I think the storytelling even took a jump up. And yeah, nothing's really. I mean, that was the pinnacle of that series. Like everything else was just going to be basically the same level or a little bit lower. And I don't want to like give outs to developers to be like, they couldn't have done better, but like I don't know if anyone could have written an ending to that game that the majority of the fans would have been happy with. I think there was always going to be a contingent of fans that were going to be upset about how it ended. Because even with games that have like 1,000 different endings, right? Like some of those JRPGs or whatever, that have like all these different endings that you can get, right? Depending on what you do in the game. There's
Yeah.
like a golden ending, right? There's like the official canon ending, right? So I don't know. Like, I think the game was pretty good. So I think the series was pretty good. I even like Andromeda. I think Andromeda was great. Was good to great. I don't think the story was as like. I think if you play it now, it's sort of like like No Man's Sky, right? People hated that, but it's really
Absolutely
made a
hated it.
comeback, right?
Yeah.
I've even heard that Fallout 76 is like a pretty good game now.
Yeah, people
Everyone
actually
hated it
don't
this
hate it
time.
anymore.
Yeah. The graphical bugs with Andromeda are gone, right? Like you don't have the weird like way they walk and like the facial expressions or whatever. It's a good game. Go back and play it, right? If you get it on sale for like $5, it's probably like $5 by now, right? If you can find it for cheap, give it a try. Like if you like Mass Effect, you're gonna like Mass Effect Andromeda. Like the gameplay is really good. Like the gunplay, the abilities, really, really good. And you can have every build in the game, right? Like they put together this idea that like you can switch between builds on the fly as you're playing, right? So that you can have any I think if you play Andromeda with the Mass Effect mindset, you'll hate it. But it was the first Mass Effect game I played, and I liked it. What do you mean by the Mass Effect mindset? I don't know what that means, to be honest. Like, if you play it thinking it's going to be the same as the first 3 Mass Effects, or it doesn't. because people will say it doesn't feel like a Mass Effect game. I'm like, I think it does. It has all the lore elements. They have all the similar abilities. When you think about if people mean like, oh, there's stakes in the first trilogy, right? I'm like, are there really? Think about it. Like, you're always gonna win, right? Like, you was it ever gonna come across that like they weren't gonna win that thing? Um,
That's true.
like I guess the enemies are kind of generic. And the Reapers are pretty cool. But like this is just there were parts of I think some of the expansions. Yeah, but that was the whole idea that they were getting away from that and there was a new threat, right? And who knows where they would have gone with the story, right? Like we still didn't find one of the arcs, right? You only find 2 of the 3. Sorry, spoilers, right? You only find 2 of the 3. But they canceled the whole expansion because people hated it. So, but they had built the game and wrote the game with that thinking it was going to happen, right? So that's a big hole in the plot. A lot of stuff that happens is going to be like just weird now because now that never came out. But yeah, it's disconnected from the drama of the Milky Way. I get that.
I think it speaks to what you were saying about if they do something different, a lot of people are going to hate it. But, you know, I think that speaks to a lot of senses of entitlement that fans have of things.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and that's why we're going back and we're going to like Shepard's probably going to come back. And like Liara Tassoni is like in the trailer for Mass Effect 4. I'm like, okay, now everyone can just have their blankie of comfort. Like this is someone I know. Like, I don't know. I have a little bit of like disdain for that type of thinking when it comes to the gamers, right? Especially AAA gamers, right? I think the people who are more focused on the indie stuff, they're much more willing to like go to like new things, right? Because all the indie stuff is new, right? Even if it's the similar type of game, right? It's a new intellectual property, right? It's a new franchise potentially or new thing. So I'm not angry at you, negativity and truth. I'm just sort of annoyed with like the mentality I see out there. You know, and because gamers will talk out of one side of their mouth and say that they want all these things. But when you look at the data of how people actually behave, they don't behave that way, right?
Yep.
So it's like, then why would the developers listen to you? They complain. They're like, they never listen to us. I'm like, well, yeah, because if they listen to you, they would make a game that no one would ever buy.
That your type of Asians have.
Hey, I just got in. I usually agree with the points and views that your type of Asians have. Okay. I don't agree with you, I guess, or us, that Asian children are complaining too much about their parents.
So my only sort of response to that is like, that's just our opinion, man. And conversely, that's just your opinion, man. I think the only way that you can disagree is if you have completely different assumptions, and that's fine. But I think we're just coming from a different place.
Yeah, and I think it's fine for Asian kids to go to STEM. I don't did we say otherwise? It's fine.
I don't even know who this is. So this might be someone that's not a regular. So whatever.
No, I mean, yeah, sure, go into STEM. It's fine to push people into STEM or to encourage them.
Get that bag, you know.
Go for it.
Cool. I don't know. I think we're good here.
Yeah, no, we're good.
We hit 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about video games for forever, but yeah, but all parents of any ethnicity, there's a percentage of them that do not treat their kids well. I don't know if it's been studied, but I would not be surprised if it was the same percentage of white parents that treat their kids poorly, the same as their Asian parents. Now, will it be the same type of ill treatment? I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, I grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods. I had predominantly white friends. It wasn't, most of the parents did not treat their kids well. That's just the reality of it. So I don't know.
I think this is like, you know, not all men, not all women type sentiments. I don't really think this is worth really considering more than we already have. I mean, like, this is not coming from a perspective that is really going to engage with us with any sort of substantial nuance. So whatever. Hey, if you disagree, that's fine. Anyway. Yeah,
Okay,
so that doesn't even make sense. So
regardless of that, then
it's whatever.
I would just say that it's Asian parents don't treat their kids well. Some, yes, that's true. Some don't. Some do. I don't know.
Yeah, this sounds like someone that's not typically engaged with our shit. So whatever.
I don't know what they're trying to make the point.
It's not
what
clear.
point they're trying to make.
But you know, we're at the end of the show anyway, so whatever.
Yeah. Not our problem. Yeah, maybe we'll think about that more.
Maybe.
I don't know. But thanks everyone. We will be back next week. Hopefully on Tuesday, our normal day. But we'll try to keep you up to date, obviously, on when that's going to happen, and if we have to reschedule like we did this week.
We shall see.
And and just if you guys ever have any questions or thoughts or topics that you want us to talk about, then of course just shoot it our way, and we'll look at it and hopefully get to talk about it. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
Till next time, guys. Peace.
Later.